diamond ring weighed 3 carats, and Sarah Chen's conscience weighed nothing at all. Yes, she whispered, looking into the roomy eyes of Marcus Rothwell. 82 years old, stage 4 pancreatic cancer, net worth $2.3 billion, and approximately 6 weeks left to live. Yes, I'll marry you. His papery hand trembled as he slipped the ring onto her finger. They were in his bedroom at the Rothwell estate in Greenwich, Connecticut. 12,000 square feet of old money and older secrets. Sarah had been his private nurse for 3 months. She'd changed his IV bags, administered his morphine, read him the Wall Street Journal every morning at 7 sharp. And she'd been calculating, always calculating. "You've made me so happy," Marcus said, his voice barely a rasp. The cancer had eaten through him like acid. 3 months ago, he'd been a titan, silver-haired, sharp-eyed. The man who'd built Rothwell Industries from a single steel mill into a global empire. Now he was bones and breath, held together by expensive medicine, and Sarah's steady hands. "I'll make you happy every day we have left," Sarah said, and she almost meant it. Almost. Because Marcus was kind. He said please, and thank you. He asked about her day. He told stories about his late wife, Catherine, who died 15 years ago, how they met in 1962, how she loved gardenias, how her laugh sounded like music. But kindness doesn't pay off student loans. Kindness doesn't erase the $180,000 debt from a nursing degree she financed a loan after her parents died in a car accident when she was 19. Kindness doesn't give you the life you deserve after growing up in a trailer park in rural Ohio, wearing second-hand clothes and eating government cheese. $2.3 billion does. They were married 4 days later in a private ceremony. Just Sarah, Marcus, his lawyer, a steel-eyed woman named Patricia Vance, and a judge. No family. Marcus had no children, no siblings, no one, just money and Sarah, and time running out like sand through fingers. "Do you take this man?" the judge intoned, and Sarah said, "I do," while mentally calculating compound interest. The wedding night. Marcus fell asleep at 8 p.m. Sarah sat in the library. Mahogany walls, first edition books, a Picasso sketch worth more than her entire childhood, and Googled spousal inheritance rights Connecticut. She had 5 weeks, maybe 6 if he was strong. Just had to be patient, just had to play the part. The next morning, she brought him breakfast in bed, oatmeal with blueberries, orange juice, his 17 pills in a small white cup. "Sarah," he said, catching her hand, "I need to tell you something." Her heart jumped. Had he changed his mind? Written her out already? "What is it?" "I'm scared," he admitted, his eyes still sharp despite everything, filled with tears. Of dying, of the pain, of leaving everything behind. His grip tightened. "But having you here, it makes it bearable." Sarah felt something twist in her chest. Something uncomfortable. Something like shame. "I'm not going anywhere," she heard herself say. And for 3 weeks, she didn't. She read to him, Hemingway, Fitzgerald, his favorite poetry. She played records on his vintage turntable, Sinatra, Ella Fitzgerald, Billie Holiday. She held his hand through the bad nights when the pain broke through the morphine like glass. She learned things that he'd grown up poor too, son of a coal miner in Pennsylvania, that he'd worked 3 jobs to put himself through Carnegie Mellon, that his first business loan was $5,000 from a bank manager who believed in him when nobody else did. "Money doesn't mean anything," he told her one night, his breath rattling. "Not really. Catherine and I, we were happiest when we had nothing. A studio apartment in Pittsburgh couldn't afford heat some winters. But we had each other, and that was everything." Sarah nodded, held his hand, and thought about the offshore accounts she'd researched online. But then something happened that changed everything. It was week 4. Marcus had rallied. Sometimes dying people do, one last surge of energy before the end. He wanted to go outside. To his garden, Sarah helped him into a wheelchair, wrapped him in blankets despite the May warmth, and pushed him down the stone path. The garden was Catherine's legacy. 10 acres of roses, peonies, gardenias. Her favorite. Marcus had maintained it obsessively since her death. hiring the best gardeners, never changing a single plant. She designed every inch of this, he said, his voice stronger than it had been in days. See those white roses? Those were for hope, the pink peonies, for bashfulness. She was so shy when we met, and the gardenias. His voice broke. Those were for secret love, because she loved me before I even knew she existed. Sarah looked at the flowers. Thousands of them carefully tended, each one a love letter from a dead woman to a dying man, and something cracked inside her. How long were you married? She asked quietly. 50. 3 years. She died in her sleep, right next to me, just didn't wake up one morning. He smiled, but it was devastated. I'm glad it was peaceful, but God, I wasn't ready. You're never ready. You must miss her terribly. Every second of every day. He looked up at Sarah, and his eyes were clear and knowing. But you can't live in grief forever. Life goes on. New people come into your world, new possibilities. The way he said it made Sarah's skin prickle, like he was trying to tell her something. That night, Marcus's condition worsened. The hospice nurse, a different one, who came for the night shifts, said it wouldn't be long. Days, maybe hours. Sarah sat by his bed, held his cooling hand, and realized with absolute horror that she was crying. Real tears, not calculated ones. Hey, Marcus whispered. His eyes opened, clouded with pain and morphine. Don't cry. I'm sorry, Sarah said. And she meant it. I'm so sorry. For what? She couldn't answer. Couldn't tell him that she'd married him for money, that she'd Googled his net worth before she'd learned his favorite color, that she'd been counting days until his death like a prisoner marking time. I wish I'd met you differently, she finally said. Not like this. Me too. He smiled, squeezed her hand weakly. But I'm glad I met you at all, Sarah Chen. You made these last months bearable. More than bearable. You gave me something to look forward to again. His breathing was labored. There is a letter. Patricia has it. Read it after. Promise me. I promise. And Sarah, don't be too hard on yourself. We're all just trying to survive. Some of us just have more resources to do it with. He died at 3:47 a.m. on the 12th of June. Sarah was holding his hand. She cried so hard the hospice nurse brought her tissues and tea. If this story touched your heart, subscribe and leave a comment. Maybe you've experienced something similar, or know someone who has. The funeral was small. Some business associates, a few distant cousins who barely knew him. Sarah sat in the front row in a black dress she'd bought at Target, feeling like a fraud. The obituary in the Times called Marcus, a titan of industry, a philanthropist, a devoted husband, survived by his wife Sarah. Wife. She'd been his wife for 5 weeks and 4 days. After the service, Patricia Vance approached with a leather portfolio. Mrs. Rothwell, we need to discuss the estate. Sarah's heart hammered. This was it. The moment she'd been waiting for. The reason for everything. They went to Marcus's office. All dark wood and oil paintings, and the smell of old cigars. Patricia sat behind the desk, opened the portfolio, and pulled out 2 envelopes. First, this is for you, Marcus's personal letter. He insisted you read it before we discuss the will. Sarah's hand shook as she opened it. The handwriting was shaky but legible. Marcus's own hand, written probably weeks ago when he could still grip a pen. Dear Sarah, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and you're probably sitting in my office with Patricia, wondering what happens next. So let me tell you, I knew. Sarah's blood went cold. I knew from the second week you started working for me. The way you looked at the art, the way you calculated when you thought I was sleeping, the way you Googled Rothwell Industries' net worth on your phone during your breaks. My dear girl, I didn't become a billionaire by being stupid. The letter blurred. Sarah's hands were shaking so hard she could barely hold the paper. But here is what you didn't know. I didn't care. When you're dying, Sarah, really dying, you see things clearly. And what I saw was a young woman who'd been dealt a terrible hand, losing her parents, drowning in debt, working herself to exhaustion, and who was simply trying to survive the only way she knew how. I saw myself at 25, desperate. hungry, willing to do almost anything to escape poverty. So I made you an offer, and you accepted it. A transaction. Your time and care for my money. Perfectly logical, perfectly cold. But then something happened. You started reading to me. Really reading, with emotion and care. You held my hand during the bad nights. You pushed me through Catherine's garden and listened, really listened, when I told you about her. You started to care, Sarah. Maybe you didn't mean to. Maybe you fought it. But I saw it happening. And that is when I realized something. You're not a bad person. You're just a scared one. And scared people make choices that haunt them later. So I'm going to give you a choice now. A real one. Sarah wiped her eyes. Kept reading. My will contains two options. Patricia will explain the details. But here is what matters. Option 1. You can take $50 million. Immediate payment. Enough to solve every financial problem you've ever had. Plus live comfortably for the rest of your life. No strings attached. Walk away. Start over. Never think about me again. Option 2. You take nothing monetary. Instead, you inherit Catherine's garden and a small trust to maintain it. You also inherit my journals, 50 years of them, and you inherit a job, reading those journals, learning my story and Catherine's, and deciding what to do with our fortune, all $2. $3 billion of it. You'll have 5 years to make that decision. 5 years to learn about love, loss, sacrifice, and what really matters. 5 years to become the person you were meant to be before life made you hard. If you choose option 2, you'll work with Patricia. You'll meet the people my money has helped, the scholarship kids, the cancer patients, the small businesses we've saved. You'll see what wealth can do when it is wielded with purpose, instead of just accumulated like a score. And at the end of 5 years, you'll decide where every penny goes. To yourself, to charity, to strangers. I don't care, because by then, you'll have learned what I spent a lifetime learning. That money is just a tool. It is what you do with it that defines you. Choose carefully, Sarah. Option 1 is safe. It is what you wanted all along. It is revenge for every slight, every hardship, every unfair hand life dealt you. Option 2 is terrifying. It is work. It is confronting who you've been and who you could become. But I believe in you. I believe that the woman who cried real tears holding my hand, who learned to love Catherine's garden, who stayed up all night reading Hemingway to a dying old man, that woman is worth more than $50 million. That woman could change the world. The choice is yours. With all my complicated, inconvenient love. Marcus. P.S. Catherine left me a letter before she died. She knew she was sick, even though she never told me until the end. In it she wrote, Marcus, promise me you'll find joy again. Promise me you won't spend the rest of your life mourning. Promise me you'll let someone else in, even if it is messy and imperfect, and nothing like what we had. I kept that promise. Sarah, you were my second chance at connection, not romance. I'm not a fool, but connection, mattering to someone again, being seen. Thank you for that. Even if it started as a transaction, it ended as something real. The letter ended. Sarah sat in Marcus's chair, in his office, surrounded by his life, and sobbed. Not delicate tears, ugly, broken chest, heaving sobs that came from somewhere deep and wounded. Patricia waited. Patient. She'd probably seen people break down in this office before. Finally, Sarah looked up. He knew, the whole time. Yes. And he still married me. Yes. Why? Patricia smiled. A small, sad smile. Because Marcus Rothwell was the most perceptive man I ever met. And the kindest. He saw potential in people. He saw it in a coal miner's son who wanted to build things. He saw it in a shy librarian named Catherine who thought she wasn't special. And he saw it in a nurse who'd armored herself with ambition, because she couldn't afford to feel anymore. Sarah looked at the letter, then at Patricia. What would you choose? I can't answer that. But I can tell you this. I've been Marcus's lawyer for 37 years. I watched him build an empire. I watched him lose Catherine and nearly lose himself. And I watched him come alive again in the last 3 months because of you. She leaned forward. He left you both options because he genuinely didn't know what you needed most. Money or meaning. Security or transformation. What did Catherine choose? Sarah asked. In her life. I mean, what kind of person was she? Patricia opened a drawer, pulled out a photograph. A young woman, maybe 30, in a simple dress, standing in a garden. She was plain, soft, featured, smiling at whoever was taking the picture with absolute love. She was a librarian who made $6,000 a year when she married Marcus. He was already wealthy by then. Everyone told her she was a gold digger, that she couldn't possibly love him for anything but money. Patricia's voice softened. She proved them wrong every single day for 53 years. She ran his charitable foundation, gave away millions, lived modestly, and turned their fortune into something that mattered. The Rothwell Scholarship Program has put 12,000 kids through college. The Rothwell Cancer Wing has saved countless lives. None of that was Marcus' idea. It was all Catherine. Sarah stared at the photograph, at this unremarkable woman who'd been called a gold digger and chose to become something else entirely. How long do I have to decide? Sarah asked. Take as long as you need, days, weeks. There is no rush. Sarah looked around the office. At the books, the art, the expensive everything. Then she looked down at her wedding ring. The 3-carat diamond, that meant nothing and everything. She thought about her trailer park childhood, her parents' accident, her debts, her calculated plan. She thought about Marcus's hand in hers, his stories, his garden, his ghosts. She thought about Catherine, who'd been judged and chosen grace anyway. She thought about what she discovered next would destroy everything she thought she knew about herself. And it had. Option 2, Sarah said. Her voice was steady. I choose option 2. Patricia smiled. Genuinely smiled. For the first time, I was hoping you'd say that. But I have a condition. Name it. The $50 million I would have gotten. I wanted to start a new program. Full scholarships for nursing students from low-income families. With a living stipend so they don't have to work 3 jobs while studying. So they don't graduate drowning in debt. So they can become nurses because they want to help people, not because they're desperate. Patricia's eyes glistened. Marcus would have loved that. And I want it named after my parents, Linda and Robert Chen. They died without leaving me anything material, but they left me everything that mattered. They taught me kindness before life taught me calculation. Sarah's voice broke. I want to remember that. I want to be that again. The next 5 years were the hardest and best of Sarah's life. She read Marcus' journals, all 50 years of them. She learned about his failures and triumphs, his regrets and joys. She learned that he'd nearly gone bankrupt in 1987, and Catherine had held him while he cried. She learned that his first million had felt empty until he'd used it to save a failing business and its workers' jobs. She learned that wealth without purpose is just numbers on paper. She worked with Patricia, traveled to meet scholarship recipients, visited the cancer wing, talked to small business owners Marcus had helped. She saw her money, because it was hers now, in trust, actually changing lives. She maintained Catherine's garden every week. Without fail, she learned the names of every plant, hired the same gardeners, added new sections, white roses for hope, pink peonies for bashfulness, and gardenias, always gardenias, for secret love. She never remarried, never wanted to. Not because she was mourning Marcus, their relationship had been too complicated for simple grief, but because she was busy becoming someone new, someone who didn't calculate value in dollars. Someone who'd learned that the richest thing you can give another person is your genuine presence. On the 5th anniversary of Marcus's death, Sarah sat in his office. Her office now, with Patricia, and a room full of lawyers, accountants, and foundation directors. I've made my decision about the fortune, she announced. Everyone leaned forward. I am keeping enough to live modestly, $2 million. That is more than I ever dreamed of having, and it is more than enough. She smiled. The rest, all of it, goes into expanding the Rothwell Foundation. New programs, housing for the homeless, mental health services, debt relief for medical bankruptcy, arts funding for public schools, everything we can imagine. That is $2.298 billion, one of the accountants said. You are giving away $2.298 billion. I'm investing it, Sarah corrected. In people, in potential, in second chances, the way Marcus invested in me. She stood, walked to the window that overlooked Catherine's garden. The gardenias were blooming. Marcus said money is just a tool, that it is what you do with it that defines you. Well, I'm choosing to be defined by what I give, not what I take. I'm choosing to be like Catherine, to prove that the person everyone assumed I was isn't the person I had to become. Patricia wiped her eyes. He'd be so proud. Maybe, Sarah said. Or maybe he knew all along. Maybe that is why he gave me the choice. Because he saw something in me I couldn't see in myself. She touched the wedding ring she still wore. She'd had it modified. A simple inscription added inside. Not for what it is worth, but for what it taught me. 10 years later, the Linda and Robert Chen Nursing Scholarship had put 847 students through school debt-free. The Rothwell Foundation had expanded into 30 states. Catherine S. Garden had been opened to the public, a place of healing and beauty and memory. And Sarah Chen, former gold digger, former calculator, former survivor at any cost, had become something she'd never planned on. Happy, not wealthy. Happy, not secure. Happy, but purpose. Happy, connected. Happy, legacy. Happy. She thought often about that night in Marcus's bedroom, when she'd said yes to his proposal, and meant it for all the wrong reasons. She thought about how we all make choices from our wounds, from our fears, from our desperation. But she also thought about what Marcus taught her, that you can start from the wrong place, and still arrive somewhere beautiful. That being seen, really seen, by another person is the greatest wealth. That love, in all its complicated forms, is the only thing we get to take with us. On quiet evenings, she'd sit in the garden at sunset surrounded by Catherine's flowers and Marcus's memory, and she'd whisper thank you to two ghosts who'd given her the one thing she'd never thought to want, the chance to become someone worth being. The diamond ring would catch the light, and Sarah would remember. It wasn't the ring that changed her life, it was the choice. The terrifying, transformative choice to stop calculating worth in dollars and start measuring it in impact, in connection, in the lives you touch and the person you become. And that, in the end, was worth more than $2.3 billion. That was worth everything.